Whenever you're working on rendering your scenes, you might often find that even though the render looks awesome, it needs a little tweaking. So Cinema 4D gives you some color grading and color correction tools built right in, almost as if though you were in Photoshop. Like I said, almost. But it's enough to sometimes make something that looks okay look a lot better. Let me go ahead and quickly show you what I have here in my picture viewer. This is a color corrected version of a render that I did earlier. So I'm going to show you how this all went down in just a moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to close everything and just open this file just all over again. So I can show you what the original render will look like. I'm also going to render it inside of the picture viewer, which is like a little window in a window. And it gives us the ability to work in Cinema 4D without having to be locked down to not being able to see our render anymore. So we'll give us a couple of seconds because I have a lot of stuff on, ambient occlusion and all kinds of other settings to get the best render I can. So we'll wait just a few moments. Okay, now as you can see, the pumpkin looks kind of cool, but like I said before, there might be some things you want to do to tweak the settings quite a bit. So let's head over to the tools over here, and where it says layer, we're going to choose right next to it the filter. Now with the filter, we're able to change the saturation, brightness, contrast, gamma, and more. So saturation is how much a color is as far as absorption. Imagine taking the color out of your object all the way to the left until you have no color. And all you have is grayscale values. So we've desaturated this image. Now you might want to do this for a certain effect, maybe a flashback scene or that kind of thing. Now, of course, the adverse of that is going super saturated. Once again, this might be helpful as well. So we can go ahead and play with the saturation. We can also work with the brightness. Okay. Now keep in mind this could typically blow your image way out of proportion, so be careful with using this one. I prefer to use the contrast. It just makes things a little bit more punchy. It takes the darks and makes them darker and makes the lights a lot lighter. And I combine the contrast with the exposure. So I can really bump up the contrast and really get those blacks popping real hard. And then I can go ahead and play around with the exposure. Of course, overexposed is like a nuclear explosion. And underexposed is like being under the water. Way under the water. Now, gamma is the midtones. So we can take those midtones and we can really blow those way out of line. So we're really not getting a correct amount of gamma. Or we can reduce the gamma. Now, what's interesting is let me go ahead and scroll down. Let me go ahead and reduce this down a little bit, just more, a little bit more, and reduce the exposure. Now, what I want to show you here is the color grading. Now, as you see here, I played around with some of these settings a little while ago, and I can take this curve here and I can add points to this curve by simply holding down Control and clicking on this line. And I can create what's known as a typical S curve, where I have a fair amount of contrast while also really punching the values of this image out. As you see here, as I move up, I really can drastically change how the image looks. For example, this makes it very posterized, where we have different spots of extreme color, all right, almost like an Andy Warhol kind of thing. And I can go to the other end as well, and I can play around the different values. And they can do really, really interesting things that would be quite difficult to do in a render. I'm going to go ahead and hit delete on my keyboard to get rid of these points here. And just go back to what was the default. All right, this was the curve before I did any of these corrections. But the good news is, as you see here, I can go ahead and play around on a channel per channel basis. And that's what these are. Red, green, and blue are all the different channels that you can play around with. Now you might be wondering why you want to do that. Well, let's say there's too much red in this image. I'll go ahead and control click, and I can go ahead and pull some of that red out. And let's say I want more green. So I'll go over here to the green channel, and I'll push more green into my image. Likewise, I could pull more blue out or put more in. I'm almost getting a little skull now in front of this pumpkin. So you could do all kinds of cool stuff with this. Now you also have the ability to save these presets. I'm going to go ahead and save this one. I'm going to call it Pumpkin Color 2 because I already have one in here. And if I want to, I can of course load one of those presets. So I have two presets here that I've created, Pumpkin Color 2 and Pumpkin Color. They live inside of our presets. So in our presets folder, it'll be under user. So let me go ahead and just minimize this very quickly. I'll go to my content browser, presets, user. And here are the filters that I created. All right, so it's really, really cool way for you to have a lot more control over how you get your final image out of Cinema 4D. I'm gonna go ahead and reset the filter to show you what the image looked like when I rendered it the first time without doing any of this stuff. All right, so this is how it looked. Everything's just ready to go. I'm gonna go ahead and load a preset. And as you see, there's a preset that I loaded. I'll reset the filter and I will load my other preset. And there's the one we just created. And you can continue, of course, to tweak them. And you can create all kinds of presets to add on future renders. So that is a look at color correction and color grading right from within Cinema 4D itself.